Welcome to Planetary Calendars, Astro Portraits. I am Ralph Demetrius, one of the astrologers for the calendar. Our portrait this time is Bruce Springsteen. It's part of our music series. Very famous singer-songwriter with a long career. He was born on September 23rd, 1949 at 10:50 p.m. in Freehold, New Jersey. He was born with the sun at 0 degrees Libra. Interesting, when people are right at those angular points, 0 degrees Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, there's a lot of energy on that first degree of those big angular points. He was born with the moon at 23 degrees Libra, right? Quite a bit of Libra going on in the chart. Libra is ruled by what? Venus. Venus is in Scorpio in his chart. So there's a tremendous amount of drive in this Libra energy. And it really goes back to that Venus. It gives so much drive because also Mercury, Neptune are also in Libra. So 4 planets in Libra, as well as the largest of the asteroids, Ceres. And they all go back to that Venus in Scorpio, which is considered the detriment position. It's deeply personal to him. And of course, then that goes back to the Mars in Leo. So he's a natural performer. Mars in Leo is very comfortable on stage. It's dramatic. And that brings it back to the sun. So it gives you this little virtuous loop here between the sun and the planets in Libra to the Venus, to the Mars, to the sun. Very compressed. And if you look at this chart, from Mars to Venus is 90 degrees. Right? And then you have Uranus as a little outlier in Cancer, and then Jupiter is the outlier in the other direction in Capricorn. So everything's on one part of the chart. But with Gemini Rising, right, all this stuff in Libra trines the rising, including the moon at 23 degrees to the rising at 22 degrees. So a lot of air. It's funny because you don't think of him as air, but he's very much about ideas. He's very much about communication. He's very much about partnership. I mean, you always see Bruce Springsteen with a band, with the E Street Band. I mean, singing with his wife. I mean, it's always a partnership to him. But when you look at this, one of the things that really stands out to me is that moon at 23 degrees Libra. That's the position of the star Spica. And I remember years ago during the Hindsight Project conference, the first one, Diana Rosenberg saying, when people have major planets at Spica, they are tremendously prolific. They just pour stuff out. They're tremendously prolific artists. Boy, does that describe him. He's had a career that's gone on for many, many years. He's still producing. He's still turning out wonderful music. The fact that Mercury's there and it's retrograde, right, in Libra, it means that his ideas and his emotions are very linked together, 18 degrees to 23 degrees. South node is 16 degrees. So he has the sun and the moon, Neptune, Mercury. They're all around the south node. These are skills that he brought in from a previous incarnation. This great creativity. Remember, the 5th house is the house of creativity. He brought this in from a previous incarnation, right? Now, what's interesting is the north node is over in the 11th house in Aries. The 11th house has a lot to do with how we earn money. He has earned his money from being Bruce Springsteen out there in the global world, about being a personality, which goes back to, and is trying to, that Mars, because it's Aries, goes back to Mars in Leo in the 3rd house. Remember, the 3rd house is the house where writing takes place. So he has Mars and Pluto and his IC, the foundation of his chart, in the 3rd house, and Juno there as well. So people don't realize how much effort he puts into his writing. I remember him telling a story once about him working on a particular song, and he had a thesaurus there because he kept having to find words that would work, that would rhyme with what he was doing, sitting on his bed, writing the lines and searching through the thesaurus for the correct word. Songwriting is a very detailed, action. He has Saturn in Virgo in the 4th house, so it shows very much a working class, kind of restrictive home life, his early home life, but a life that allowed him a lot of natural creativity. And then the Venus in Scorpio in the 6th house, it shows that his work would be in the arts. The 6th house is about your basic work would be in the arts, and it would be intense. What's interesting is that his midheaven is up in the 9th house. So for him, being successful had to do with going beyond his limitations. And it's funny because, we really think of him as being so related to New Jersey, so related to that part of the world, New Jersey, near New York City. But for him, it was really a chance to get out into the world. What's funny is that Aquarius is there. And Aquarius, doesn't that describe, in some ways, in the 9th house? 9th house is a house of celebration out there in the world. This really does not describe a rock and roll concert, kind of, the chaos of rock and roll, the chaos of a big group of people together, Aquarius, and it goes back once again to that, 4th house, because, if you know the areas where he originally played music, these were really working class bars and clubs. Asbury Park, this is a working class area, middle class, working class area. This was very much, dungarees, blue jackets, working clothes. It's still very much to his roots. What's interesting is he has Jupiter in Capricorn in the 8th house. It's an unusual position. Jupiter in Capricorn is actually the fall position. It's very internalized. It's the kind of the counselor position in the 8th house. He has received more than likely very good advice from older people, or sought out very good advice from older people. That Jupiter in Capricorn in the 8th house. What's interesting too is Jupiter in Capricorn, his desire was to develop kind of a legacy, have his work have a legacy, have his work talk about maybe the hard side of life, the depths of life, but over long periods of time. But like I said, I think part of it really comes from his ability to, tap into information and ideas from people who really knew how things worked. Because the thing about the 8th house, it's about how power is managed collectively. And he's really good at understanding that. He has a lot of insights about that. And remember, he's always worked with a band or a group of people. So he's had to have that natural talent. What's fun is the Gemini Rising. The Gemini Rising goes back to the Mercury and Libra retrograde, in the 5th house. It shows a certain playfulness. It shows a willingness to be a little silly, and if you've seen some of his videos, like his kind of, not perfectly framed videos, but the stuff that he's done, it's very playful, it's funny, it's cute, it's very Gemini. And like I said, with having all this stuff in Libra supporting that rising, it showed a great deal of glibness, besides the fact he is a songwriter. Gemini rising for a songwriter is perfect because it's all about the words. It's all about the ideas. It's all about creating the picture that you want to create. It's a fascinating chart. You wouldn't think that someone with so much Libra would have such a driving performance, but you have to really look at that Venus in Scorpio and the Mars in Leo conjunct Pluto. When Pluto is conjunct Mars, it makes the Mars much more powerful. And in this case, it's in the fire sign in the 3rd house, which supports that Gemini rising. It adds a lot of energy to his personality, a tremendous amount of energy. So that's a portrait of Bruce Springsteen, musician, songwriter. Please come see us at Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube. We put up our portraits weekly, and we put up our forecast for the coming week weekly. You can also find the portraits, and our books and our planetary calendar at planetarycalendar.com. Be well.